Putting the K in magic. I'm Joanna DeVoe, and you're watching another episode of Every Which Way. This time featuring Lenora Henson of Lenora Aura. She is a self-professed wild woman and wicked writer. She has a new book series that's coming out next spring called The Wicked Garden. She is a woman that I think so many of us can relate to. She's a person who has risen from the ashes of alcoholism and divorce and her own dark shadow side kind of running the show, and through creativity and writing she was able to find her way out of all of that and into a new life that she's been creating for herself. And I personally just find her very warm and friendly and inspiring, and I hope that you do too. So here she is, Lenora Henson, future best-selling author of The Wicked Garden. Hi Lenora, welcome to Every Which Way.
Hi Joanna, thanks for having me.
I'm really excited to talk to you today because we have been emailing each other a little bit over the internet for a while this year, and I've been watching your progress in terms of you've been working on this novel series, and you have your first novel in the series with an editor now, and you're going to be self-publishing next year. So before we get started, can you just tell us what your book series is going to be about? I know it's witchy, and I know my viewers are going to love it.
Okay, yes. And actually it started after I watched one of your Every Which Way videos about, with Joanna Penn.
Yeah.
I was really down in the dumps about the book series that I had been writing, and after watching that video, it really inspired me to self-publish, to take it onto myself, to really make things happen. The book series is about a family of witches. It begins in the 17th century. It's about the solstice twins, and one of these twins is executed for the crime of witchcraft. The other twin escapes, and she doesn't deal with the death very well. She holds herself responsible for things that you find out later that have happened. But it's kind of, it has a lot to do with ancestry and what we pass down to our descendants. So basically this twin, she haunts her family line for the next, several centuries up until the present time.
Wow.
And, yeah.
And the other twin that survives, she lives through this whole time? Is she?
She lives another 13 years, and then she commits suicide by drowning.
Oh
so
gosh.
she sets in motion this really horrible legacy. And, in the present time, the whole book is about healing. It's about healing yourself, and then are we capable of healing our ancestors? Are we capable of changing the cycle? That's the question I kind of put out there.
I notice a lot in your videos, you use metaphor. You used to be known as the Phoenix, what was it, the Rising Phoenix?
The Phoenix Spirit is what I went by for a while.
Yeah, Phoenix Spirit, there we go. And
Right.
and you'll talk about Demeter or Persephone. One of my favorite videos that I will talk about later, I think you called The Descent of Persephone or something like that. Is that what this is? Is this a giant metaphor? All of the witchiness and the solstice sisters?
A little bit, yes. And I think a lot of it is, it's about cycles. It's learning to trust the cycles, our natural cycles, our instinctual cycles, lunar cycles, seasonal cycles. It's learning to trust birth, life, and death. And you can't have one without the other.
Wow. And it's called The Wicked Garden, right?
The Wicked Garden, yes.
And you have 6 books that you have planned for this.
I'm way too ambitious.
No, I had 5 in a series I was writing. When I heard you were doing 6, I was like, she's crazier than me, or I'm not crazy. One of the two.
Crazier. It just became so complex, and there were so many ideas that I wanted to explore in it. Things that I'm very inquisitive. So there were a lot of things that I wanted to know myself, and they really developed in this story. So it was fun, and it's definitely been a learning experience.
I can tell you're passionate about it. I think that's going to translate well. I really wanted to get a jump, too, on interviewing you now because we had talked about doing it later when the book comes out. I know you tentatively have it scheduled for spring 2013, yes?
Yes.
And I recommend everyone go check out your Facebook page, too, because you're already gearing up. You know, you're taking little quotes from the book and putting them with pictures and stuff. I think that's such a great idea. And it's great for your viewers to start kind of getting in the spirit of it and getting ready for the book to come out.
I'm learning a lot about marketing along the way.
Yeah.
And I think you don't want to overwhelm people, but in the same sense, you want to keep them hooked a little bit. Mm-hmm. So by the time they get it, hopefully it'll live up to their expectations.
Yeah. And I think, too, also what's so interesting about you is you were called the Phoenix Spirit, and you personify that to me. It's interesting that you're leaving that now and stepping into Lenora Aura, which is what everything's called. It's almost like, well, I rose from the ashes, and now here I am.
Right. It's almost a new stage in my life.
Yes, yeah. I definitely sense that, and the butterflies on your background are very appropriate.
Right.
Can we talk about Rising from the Ashes a little bit? Because you have a story that's just so relatable to myself, and I think all kinds of women. This happens to us in our 30s and our 40s, where life just sort of flattens us or pulls out the rug from underneath us, and then we have to rebuild ourselves, and you've done that.
I have. I feel like I've done that twice, 2 major times in my life. You know, we all go through little deaths along the way. I did have some addiction issues. In 2007, I really recognized them for what they were. In 2008, I started getting myself cleaned up a little bit. Just to be blunt about it, I am a recovering alcoholic. And in 2008, I had a brother that passed away, and I was sober at the time. Well, by the end of the month, I wasn't sober any longer. I had no coping skills. And so I did get into therapy, which helped a lot. And then in early 2009, a really interesting thing happened to me. And I'd been reading, and I'd been really exploring this idea of the psychospiritual beliefs, or however you want to call that. I've really been going down that path, and it led me to meditation and yoga. And I had meditated that morning, and when I had come back, and it was cold that morning, I remember that I had come back, and I was sitting in my office, and I sat down and I started to write. Well, I hadn't written in 10 years, and I remember pretty clearly the day that I had given up on it, and the thoughts that were going on in my head, and the negativity. And so it really surprised me when I started to do that. And I felt, even when I was during meditation, I felt a separation take place. And as I was typing, I felt a presence, and I kind of turned a bit, I guess, and my shadow was there. And there was indeed a separation, and it became outside of myself, and I heard, "What are you doing? Why are you writing? You know nothing's going to become of this. Why are you doing this to yourself?" Just every horrible thing that I could think of, and I thought, no more. And I just kept writing, and I ended up writing an autobiographical novel, and it was about my shadow and I. And it was probably the best therapy I could have done.
Oh my God, I have goosebumps. I've been doing a little shadow series, and I didn't even know that about you. I'm like, ooh, that was such a cool moment just now.
and you know, the thing is, Joanna, I didn't know anything about shadow work at that point. Mm-hmm. And the next 6 months is when I was really in my descent, my Persephone descent. And the goddess Sophia became my spirit guide. I didn't know anything about spirit guides. The eagle became my totem. I didn't know anything about that. It was just something that I naturally went through. And afterward, I learned all about this soul work. And it was like, okay, I've been there, you know, and
wow.
That's the story.
Can we tell people that don't know a little bit about Persephone, just quick, like the cliff notes? And she definitely ties into Sophia, too, which is the Gnostic goddess.
Persephone, she was the daughter of Demeter, and Demeter is the mother goddess of the harvest, and she's very protective, very motherly. And Persephone is very much the mother's daughter. She was abducted by Hades and taken to the underworld, where she ate some pomegranate seeds, and therefore was I guess forced to stay in the underworld for 3 months out of the year, which became winter, and it's all symbolic. What's really interesting too, and I'm kind of going off topic here, but Hermes, Hermes became really important to me too. And as the messenger, he's able, he's a psychopomp, so he can go to the underworld in safety and come back and, bring messages. And that became really important to me too, because I felt like he worked as my masculine. He worked really good as my action and was able to go downward into my psyche and retrieve things. You know what?
This is so cool. How are you connecting in with like this mythology and gods and goddesses? I mean, are they symbols and ideas to you that just resonate, that you can grab onto? Is that how it's working?
Very much so. And when I was getting sober, archetypal psychology became, I was very intrigued by it. Mm-hmm. And so I started really studying that. And in mythology, too, I started to really figure out what I liked, and those were a couple of the things. I could understand it. I could understand my life through myth a lot better than I could, in some other ways, I guess.
Yeah, Joseph Campbell, he's all about the power of myth and all. I have a hard time with it, actually. It's something I've had to spend a lot of time looking into because I'm just not big on deity and, especially the pantheons and stuff. But once you get at it from like a psycho-spiritual point of view, then it all starts making sense to me. It's like, oh, okay, I get it. This is how we understand ourselves, and it's timeless.
It is. It is timeless. And really, they aren't deities to me so much. I really don't see them in that way. I see them as patterns. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
It does, especially because you're a writer.
And I see things very symbolically. And you mentioned Joseph Campbell. The Descent is very, very much the hero's journey. Mm-hmm. And I use this quote a lot. I probably used it in one of my videos before. But Tom Robbins, my favorite novelist, he says, "We are our own dragons as well as our own heroes, and we have to save ourselves from ourselves." That is probably the best quote of all time, I think. Somebody that, anybody really.
Yeah, you talked about, I wrote it down because I like the dragon you called your alcoholic gene. You said you had the gene in you already and that you awakened the dragon when you started drinking. This is, by the way, in her Persephone's Descent to the Underworld video. Go check it out, people, if you're struggling with recovery or you want to start struggling with recovery.
Right, really.
But you compared your alcoholic gene to the dragon, and I thought, oh, there's another metaphor. There she goes again.
I really do. I do that a lot. Mm-hmm. I do see it as my dragon, and I think when somebody with the gene, and I knew I had the gene, I was told I had the gene. Mm-hmm. I think when somebody that has the gene drinks or drugs or does anything like that, you wake up the dragon. And, he may be kind at first, but he's going to get ruthless and he's going to get mean, or she's going to get mean in my case. But I think after a lot of care, I was able to calm her, put her back to sleep, and, put her in a cage.
How do you keep her in the cage now? You're almost 4 years in, or in February you'll be 4 years in. How Absolutely. Are you making sure that she stays in there?
My creative life. Mm-hmm. Absolutely my creative life. When I started writing again, that was really the first real step toward healing. And I think once you get all that pollution out of yourself and you get the creative river flowing again, as Clarissa Pinkola Estes says in Women Who Run with the Wolves, once that creative river is free to flow, the healthier you are. In her opinion and mine opinion too, because I've lived it.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on more than 3.5 years now. That is a huge accomplishment. Has it been What's been your experience? Do you feel like you hit the ground running, or did you feel like there were more like plateaus and then epiphanies and plateaus and epiphanies? When did you start really feeling like yourself and like, oh, this is Lenora, you know?
Right. It took me 6 months to write the autobiographical novel, and I was in the descent that long. And when that was done, I ascended, and I just felt great. And I took about 6 months off, and I did spend that 6 months doing a lot of reading. I read Women Who Run with the Wolves, which impacted my life hugely. And I really started to develop a new belief system and changing the way I thought, kind of healing the relationship with my daughter in that 6 months. And then it seems like everything kind of starts for me in like January or February. But I guess it would be 2010 when I started the Wicked Garden series. And I had already been doing some ancestry work when that started, which kind of tied into it. I don't know. And that was like the best year of my life. The year that what I did was I wrote 4.5 of the books that first year.
Wow.
I don't think I've ever felt that good in my life.
I think that's the key. I think the key is to replace the behavior, whether it's overeating or smoking weed or alcohol or shopping, whatever it is for you. I think you have to find something so compelling that you're even more passionate about. It seems like that's what really pulled you along.
It is. And I think the bottom line is, I've always been a seeker. I was raised agnostic, and I was always given the opportunity to seek my own truth, I guess. And I have been a seeker, and what I realize is I don't know if there's a universal truth or not. I will never know. None of us will. But what I have, and I'm okay swimming in the mystery. I'm okay with that now. But what I've come to know is that when you find your own truth, your own personal truth, then that does become the truth. And when you live it, I think that's the best healing that there is. Yeah. When you live your purpose, you don't have a need for addiction. It's your own purpose.
Yes. And what an amazing example to set for your daughter, just to show her just that whole ordeal, what you went through before, recovery. Her name is Sophia, for goodness sake, and I know that's just a coincidence, but it's like, I could just sit here.
My ex-husband named her.
That is so wild. It's really fitting, too, if you look into the Gnostic mythology about Sophia. She kind of bridges heaven and earth. She's kind of like, she is that, so I think that's really fitting. You did a video with her. You guys went to go see Brave together, which has all these mother-daughter themes, and then you did a mother-daughter video review about it. I thought that was so sweet.
She's a doll. And speaking of her, I did want to mention this, because we were talking about teenagers and how to encourage them to start listening to their own intuition and giving their shadow voice. Mm-hmm. So maybe they don't have to go through some of the stuff that we, went through. But here is a book that I bought for my daughter. I don't know if you can see it.
I can see it, yes.
Oh,
Sophia.
It's called Sophia 7 Goddesses.
Nice.
And it's this little girl named Sophie. And it's about Athena, Demeter, Persephone, Artemis, Aphrodite, Hestia, and Hera. And this is the goddess Sophia, who's kind of the goddess of wisdom that kind of ties them all together. Oh. So I bought this for Sophia, and she is totally digging it.
That is so cool.
It is, and it's about self-acceptance and self-love. And it's for my 10-year-old. The Sophie in the book is actually 12.
It'd be fun to interview her. You had, I don't want to get into this, but you went through a divorce after you got sober too. And then clearly you didn't backtrack, right? That happened during your recovery process?
Oh, absolutely.
Or as a result of your recovery process? I don't know.
Well, pretty much as a result. I think during my recovery, I think I kind of grieved the end of the marriage then.
Okay.
And I knew it was over. I think I was just in denial for a while. But about 2 years later, in October of 2010, I had quit smoking.
Wow. I mean, you just ripped it off like a Band-Aid.
Yeah. And it was actually easier to quit smoking than it was to quit drinking. But I did that too. And it seemed, I think about 4 months later, maybe I was done. And then in April, I filed for divorce and we moved out shortly thereafter. And that was a descent too. That's a traumatic experience.
I know. You went and lived with a friend, your daughter and you.
We lived with a friend for 8 months, and I'm very much a person who likes her security, and I'm a very organized person. I like to know what's going to happen, and sometimes you just got to let go and trust.
I'm very inspired by you. You did so much of this in such a short period of time. I mean, most people that are recovering from alcoholism, they hang on to those cigarettes for dear life.
Yeah,
and one of your most popular videos, I noticed it's got like 7,000 and something plays on it, is how you quit smoking.
Right. Yeah, that amazes me.
Yeah.
And actually, I'm on my 2-year this month coming up, so I'm probably going to be making another video.
Congrats.
Because I think sometimes people don't believe you, or that you relapse or whatever. But yeah I'm still going strong. So
it just shows how popular that video was. That people really struggle with the smoking to quit. I hear it's pretty. I was never a smoker, but I hear it's pretty hardcore in terms of trying to stop.
It is. It's kind of a mind trip, and I think once you get your mind around that, it's not so bad.
You're going to be going into your 40s a whole new woman.
I am, and I think part of it is I just quit being so hard on myself. Once you get right with the shadow and let her talk a little bit, it changes things.
Yeah, you can tell you did a lot of deep work that then just started coming out in different ways in your life.
I did, and it made room for the creativity. Once you get that junk out of the way, then you have room to do things that you were really meant to do.
The power of shadow work and creativity.
Right on.
Nice. People can check you out at lenorahenson.blogspot.com.
As of right now,
and your Facebook page, what is that? I forget. Is it Lenora Aura?
It's actually Lenora Henson Author.
Okay.
On Facebook, my Facebook fan page, which I launched last week, and it was like, oh my goodness, what am I doing?
You're already doing such a good job. I think, it was interesting. I did the Joanna Penn interview, and for those of you who didn't see it, Joanna Penn, gosh, what would you call her? She's a writer, but she's also, she interviews other writers, and she's super interested in how you market yourself, and she talks a lot about self-publishing, and you had written to me saying, oh, I love that interview, and then you just took off. I'm watching you what? She's putting all this together, and now she has an editor. This is crazy. It was so inspiring to me.
It was inspiring to me, and it was what I needed to hear, exactly at the time that I needed to hear it, and, it was just amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Mutual inspiration. It's interesting the way you're starting to put everything together. The opening to your videos now matches and ties in, and you've got a Pinterest board, and you're doing it full bore.
And I'm learning along the way. I really am. It's definitely an interesting learning process.
Was it hard to give your book over to an editor?
Not too bad. She's just started, jumping into it. I think what I'm kind of scared of now is I've kind of put myself out there, and so I know, I really have to follow through.
Yeah.
That's the scary part.
I believe you will. I wouldn't have asked you to do this interview. I would have just sat and waited. But there's something about you. There's a certain conviction you have where I was like, she's really doing this. She's going to do this.
Yeah, and I have been called a determined person, and I guess I get it from my mom, but once I decide to do something, I try to follow through with it. It's a lot of it's got to do with courage. Mm-hmm. And that's with everything. You need that to get sober, you need that to make the descent, and to do anything, and it's all a choice. a choice too.
So, I guess before I let you go, I really want to know, I usually ask people, if they have any tips for living the kick-ass life of your dreams, but I want to know what your tip is for someone who is struggling, maybe with an addiction, maybe with a bad marriage, maybe just with some darkness that they can't seem to get on top of. What would be a good tip for starting their journey into the underworld?
Right, yes. And it is a choice to go down there. As hard as it is, to thine own self be true. Just, you know what your truth is. And if you could even grasp just a tiny bit of it and hang on to that and go from there. I mean, I knew I was supposed to be a writer from the time I was in second grade, and I think most people do know what they need to do. And if you can grasp that and hold on to it, it will get you through your adversity.
Wow. So your first bit of truth was, I am a writer.
It was. Nice. It was. And the same thing that is my truth, that I am a writer, is what got me through that first 6 months. The actual act of writing was my therapy. Nice. Which is really weird and ironic
and beautiful.
And beautiful. It really was.
And it's a great lesson. It's never, not that you're an old woman, you're just in your late 30s now, but it's never too late to start again. And late bloomers rock. And we still look good, damn it. So, but any time is a good time to give yourself a fresh start and to be the person that you've always been deep down inside and that you're capable of.
Right. And I think another tip I would say, now that I'm thinking about it, is to discern what you can control and what you can't control. Because that made a huge difference for me. I was a very controlling person and I'm still working on that codependency issue. Mm-hmm. But if you can let go of things,
let go and let God.
Let somebody.
Yeah.
If you can't do it, you got to let go. So,
nice.
Yeah, and the universe, it's straight along with the power of or the law of attraction, which I know you talk a lot about, an intention. And two things that I was told when I was getting sober. One of them, keep it simple. And I love to make things complex, as you know, with my books. Mm-hmm. It's simple. Then the second thing that a pal of mine from a website that I belong to told me early in my recovery is, the want has to be greater than the need.
Oh, that's interesting. I've never heard that before.
And that hit right here. It hit to my soul because it was so true. Every alcoholic needs to get sober. Everybody needs to do certain things, but there is not going to be any action unless you want it, unless you put the intention out there.
Wow.
Because it kind of, the want exceeds the need. Mm-hmm. It shifts. And then things kind of line up for you to help you succeed. So
that is a great piece of advice.
It really is.
Well, thank you, Lenora. It was awesome getting to talk to you. I'm so happy we did this, and I will talk to you again next spring because we all are going to want to buy your book and find out how you're launching this thing and where we can buy it and all that good stuff.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Joanna.
Much love. Peace. Okay.